Is the US actually getting closer to a zero waste circular future, or are we just getting better at marketing it? Welcome back to Environmental News, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host, Stacey Savage, aka the Texas Trash Talker, founder and CEO of Zero Waste Strategies. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into what's actually happening in zero waste, recycling, food waste, composting, and circular economy across the US. So we have three big stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, we'll be looking at the U.S. Plastics Pact 2024-25 Impact Report that shows brands, retailers, reclaimers, and NGOs moving from vague goals to measurable actions. The bad, we'll look at how years into the compostable packaging boom, a new industry analysis finds acceptance is still fragmented. Facilities are rejecting a lot of green packaging, and brands are out over their skis on claims the system just can't handle. And for the ugly, we'll take a look at New York, where more than 100 corporations lobbied hard to weaken or block a strong plastics reduction bill. As always, this isn't just news. It's about what these stories mean for our communities, workers, and what you can do in your own life and at work. So let's dive in. The U.S. Plastics Pact, or USPP, released a 24-25 impact report, and it's one of the most substantial updates on how U.S. players are actually changing plastics packaging. The USPP is a coalition of brands, retailers, recyclers, converters, materials suppliers, nonprofits, and public agencies that are working toward a circular economy for plastics packaging in the U.S. In 2025, the pact shifted to Roadmap 2.0 with a 5-target update for 2030. Target 1, eliminate all items on the problematic and unnecessary materials list and cut virgin plastic used in packaging by 30% by 2030. Target 2, design and manufacture 100% of plastic packaging to be either reusable, recyclable, or compostable. Target 3, effectively recycle 50% of plastic packaging and build the framework to recycle or compost it at scale. For Target 4, achieve an average of 30% post-consumer recycled, or PCR, or responsibly sourced bio-based content across all plastic packaging. And finally, Target 5, identify viable reusable packaging systems and scale them as part of reducing virgin plastic use. This is a total systems plan, not just a one-off pledge. So, here's what the latest data show. Activators placed about 3.58 million metric tons of plastic packaging on the U.S. market. 1.3 million metric tons of that was business to consumer or business to retail. 54% of plastic packaging put on the market by these companies is now reusable, recyclable, or compostable by weight. 29% of the reporting business activators, which are brands, retailers, converters, and resin suppliers, say that they did not sell any items on the Pact's problematic and unnecessary materials list. The U.S. national recycling rate for plastic packaging is still only about 13.3%, and this underscores the infrastructure and participation gap outside of this particular coalition. An average PCR bio-based content across packaging for activators is 14%, roughly halfway to the 30% by 2030 target. The pact also highlights that PET bottles, pallet wrap, and other flexible films are in the top 3 packaging formats by weight among members, high-volume items where design and end markets actually matter. Now, here's 3 reasons why this is genuinely good news. We not only have concrete targets, we have real data. We can see clear 2030 targets, baseline data, and year-over-year progress across elimination, design, recycling, PCR, and reuse. Also, there's policy guidance, not just PR. The pact released policy resources on problematic materials, PCR certification, extended producer responsibility, or EPR, reuse policies, and the role of mechanical versus chemical recycling. This helps align legislation like the Federal Circle Act and emerging EPR bills with what actually works on the ground. And finally, cross value chain collaboration, where work streams bring in brands, recyclers, policy folks, and environmental justice voices to co develop guidance. This makes finding solutions much less siloed and more whole systems thinking. So, what can you do? If you're a consumer, you can prioritize brands that disclose packaging goals, support EPR, and talk specifically about reusable, recyclable, or compostable by design and PCR content, not just vague eco friendly labels. As a professional or a business, you can use the U.S. Plastic Pact's guidance and targets as a benchmark for your RFPs, supplier conversations, or product design. If it's relevant, get your organization into pact-aligned work streams or similar coalitions to shape standards rather than just react to them. If the good is about a coalition clarifying what circular plastic should look like, then the bad shows what happens when on-the-ground composting systems can't keep up with the packaging race. For the bad, this week comes a new report on compostable packaging acceptance. Even as brands push more compostable products, commercial composters remain divided on what they will actually take at their processing plants, and many materials are still heading to landfills or contaminate compost. A January industry analysis in packaging dive notes that composters are still cautious about accepting many types of compostable packaging, especially multi-layered items and those that don't break down reliably in their systems. Here's what's going wrong. Number one, inconsistent acceptance. Now, some facilities accept certified compostable food serviceware, but others reject nearly all packaging and will only take food scraps and yard trimmings. Another key issue is performance. Some composters report that some certified compostables don't fully break down within their operating cycles, which leaves visible fragments in finished composts. There's another issue regarding contamination. It's often very hard for workers or residents to distinguish compostable from conventional plastics. So compostable items can actually increase contamination if mixed bins aren't well controlled. And last, policy. Only a limited number of states and municipalities have a strong labeling, certification, or acceptance standard. BPI and others track a patchwork of compostable product and organics policies that still don't form a seamless national landscape. In other words, the marketing is ahead of the infrastructure. Here's why it matters to zero waste. Compostable packaging can be useful in targeted contexts. Closed-loop systems like stadiums or campuses where bins and hauling are tightly managed are some examples. But pushing compostables into a system that's not quite ready risks customer confusion, higher processing costs, and wish cycling. It can also distract from simpler, higher impact strategies like reusable servicewares or source reduction in standardized, truly recyclable formats. So, this is bad not because compostables are inherently bad, but because the systems and policies are not aligned with the products that are being sold. So here's what you can do. If you're a consumer, you can treat compostable products as conditional solutions. They only work if your hauler or compost facility explicitly accepts them. If not, they likely belong in the trash and not your green cart. You can also prioritize reusables and simple recyclable formats like plain paper or more widely recyclable plastics over novelty compostable plastics unless you know that your system is ready in your local area. For institutions or businesses, you can start with your local processor. Ask them what they actually accept and successfully compost, and then you can build your purchasing list around that. If you operate closed venues like schools or offices or stadiums, then you can design zero waste programs with tight controls. If the bad is about products outpacing infrastructure, then the ugly is about powerful companies trying to stop strong packaging laws from ever getting off the starting line. Now, for this story, we're going to go to New York, where a strong plastic reduction bill became a case study for corporate lobbying versus circular economy policy in 2025. A recent investigation found that more than 100 corporations and trade groups, including major consumer goods, packaging, and fossil fuel linked companies, lobbied to weaken or block a proposed plastics bill that would have set aggressive reduction and reuse targets and restricted problematic materials. Here's what the bill was trying to do. Number one, cut single-use plastic packaging, especially hard-to-recycle formats. Number two, shift costs and responsibility toward the producers via EPR-style mechanisms. And number three, set clear standards for recyclability, reuse, and toxic materials in packaging. These goals lined up closely with what coalitions like the U.S. Plastics Pact, environmental advocates, and many local governments say is necessary to hit circular economy targets. This reporting showed that lobbyists sought to water down reduction targets, slow timelines, and broaden definitions so that more status quo packaging could count as recyclable. The result? A drawn-out process and a weaker, more delayed reform trajectory than advocates had pushed for. In other words, while coalitions like USPP are trying to harmonize design standards and support policy, many of the same or adjacent sectors are spending heavily to avoid binding rules at the state level. This exposes the gap between voluntary commitments and what happens when strong legislation is on the table. It slows progress in a state that could otherwise help set up a national benchmark for plastics reduction, reuse, and EPR. It also enforces why communities, advocates, and smaller businesses need to be organized and vocal to counterbalance large lobbying budgets. So, here's what you can do. As a resident and consumer, you can track who's actually lobbying against strong waste and packaging policy in your own state. Many systems publish registries of lobbying clients. You can also support coalitions that push for strong enforceable rules, not just voluntary guidelines, and show up to the hearings, comment periods, and local meetings. Now, as a professional or a business, you can push your own organization to align lobbying and sustainability. If your company has public zero waste commitments, its trade association should not be fighting the policies needed to deliver them. So let's bring this home with 3 simple actions. 1, vote with your purchases, not just your ballot. Favor products and brands that are moving on USPP-style targets. Clearer design for recycling, higher PCR content, reusable, refillable packaging, and transparent reporting. Number 2, respect the systems that you actually have. For organics, learn exactly what your local composting program or hauler accepts, and buy, sort, and bin accordingly instead of trusting broad compostable claims. Number 3, add your own voice to policy, not just social media. When strong plastic or waste bills are on the table, assume major money is being spent to water them down. Your comments, your testimony, and local organizing are the counterweight and highly critical. So these stories this week show 3 truths. Coalition like the USPP are providing that circular packaging is possible when companies, recyclers, and advocates actually align on targets and data. Pushing green products without building the right systems leaves residents, composters, and haulers just stuck in the fallout. And every time a strong plastic flaw surfaces, we see just how fiercely the old model fights to survive. The good news is that none of this is fixed. Every procurement decision, every bin you set out, every comment to a legislator, and every story you share helps tip the balance toward a truly circular and zero waste future. If this episode gave you ideas for your own work or your own household, hit subscribe. Share it with someone and drop in the comments which story you might want a deeper dive on next time. I'll see you in the next episode of Environmental News, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where we keep pulling back the curtain on how waste really works and how we can change it together. Thanks. Bye, y'all.